Hi, my name is Brian Payne and I'm the module coordinator for Victims and Restorative Justice. This module takes a critical take on every type of harm that is perpetuated in society and how we respond to it. We look in particular at the criminal justice system, but we also look at a range of other different organisations, government departments and areas of our society such as schools, communities, health and social care, and a variety of other really interesting scenarios. The module starts off by taking a really critical take on how we perceive victims and offenders within society and how we respond to them. So we look very, very critically at the role of victims in society. We consider issues and ideas such as the ideal victim. We look at victim precipitation, the idea that's very prevalent in society about how victims sometimes can be in some way partially culpable for their victimhood, which is an incredibly alarming thing to teach about and something that I enjoy a lot. We then look very critically at offenders and how we respond to offenders. We look at the idea of revenge within our society and we look at whether prison and punishment is the best way to deal with all types of offences and all sorts of offenders. And obviously restorative justice then is something which we look at as an alternative perspective to many of the dominant and traditional forms of criminal justice. So moving on through the module then, we start to do individual case studies where harm has been perpetuated or where restorative justice can be applied within particular scenarios. So we look at restorative justice as a response to big natural disasters in terms of what has happened there, and also in terms of disasters that have happened in the public realm. Things such as the Hillsborough tragedy, for example, is another thing that we look at. And we look at individual case studies as we go through and explore how relatives and victims within these particular issues have used restorative justice to find closure and to try to gain some answers and information about what's happened to their loved ones. Progressing through then, we look at the application of restorative justice in specific departments of the criminal justice system, such as in policing, such as in probation, and such as in the courts. Youth justice is another topic that we look at quite in depth. And then we move on to explore its use in broader scenarios, such as within communities and within our local schools. With the idea of promoting a restorative society now really starting to come to the forefront. Schools are very, very much at the front line of that as well. So as we progress through this, we have a process of continuous assessment for the module. So we have something called a learning log and then a reflective journal that students work on each week. And every case study that we look at from week to week then forms an entry into their journal, and then they submit this at the end of the year. And the idea is that we sort of avoid that bunching at the end of the year where students have to try and finish a big massive assignment. We support students the whole way through and they gain feedback and learning in terms of their reflective log, but also in terms of the skills of really critically assessing the use of restorative justice and relating this back to literature as we go. In terms of how restorative justice prepares students for a life outside university, it's a very sort of highly rewarding module that also touches on several different echelons of society. It's something which is being used much more within the criminal justice system, for example. So it forms part of training for new police officers, it forms part of training for new social workers and probation officers, for example. So it's highly relevant to those particular professions, but similarly as you go into the community sector and also working for a range of different non-government organisations, all are starting to use restorative principles or restorative approaches in the work that they do. And so somebody who would be going in for a job interview for one of those particular organisations would have a lot of things to talk about having conducted this module, and I think would be something that would be a huge interest to employers going forward.